So thanks everyone for joining us today. This is the first of our session. My name is Terry Hecker. I'm the Wellness and Benefits Consultant. This is the first in our series of 6 sessions for the May Retirement Series. And I'm excited to kick us off this month. We have a lot of wonderful information for your financial wellness. And today's session is What's Your Wealth Score? You should have received an email yesterday with some materials. And prior to that, I had also emailed everyone the app. I know some of you mentioned the app. You had some technical difficulties with that. So Tim may be able to help us with that after the session is done. We have with us today, and he's done many sessions for us, and we keep bringing him back, and he broke a record today with this session with all of the registrations. Tim Shirk is from Francis Investment Counsel. He's a certified financial planner, and he has done these sessions for us for a while, and we're excited to have him back for this session as well. He's going to provide you with a lot of good information today. We also have Mark Lash, who is our retirement consultant at MCW, with us today, so hopefully we can field different questions all of you may have. You are muted upon entry. We are going to ask that you put any questions in the Q&A, and we will try and answer some of those at the end, but we've got a full packed session, and I'm going to hand it over to Tim right away so we can get rolling so he can start. So give me a second here. And take it away, Tim.
All right, Terry, I have to confirm I have audio and confirm that you are seeing a screen with a big old "What's Your Wealth Score" on. Is that the case? All right, fantastic. All right, well, thanks everybody for your time and attention. I appreciate it. My name is Tim Shirk. I am with Francis Investment Counsel. Please take note of my email address here. See if I get my laser pointer going. My email address is timothy.shirk@francisinvco.com. Do feel free to chat in the questions as Terry instructed, but if there's a question that you're not willing to ask in front of the group, or if we just simply don't have time, I'm happy to field those emails. Or if you prefer, you can email Terry and she can forward that to me. We can do it that way as well. The key is I want to make sure if you have questions they get answered. As far as technical difficulties getting on the app, I know I'm working with a couple of folks. Send me an email if you want help trying to get access to the app, and we'll see if we can help you out with that. Because we're not able to do this live, which is not my preference, I'd much rather be in front of you all, engaging with you all. I do, however, want to engage you. We use Poll Everywhere. It's a polling software. If you can get to a browser without leaving this meeting, www.pollev.com. And then in the meeting, if you type in my name, Timothy Shirk 857, it will connect you with this meeting. That's so that when I have a question up, a PowerPoint question up, you can answer, and your answer will be included with everybody else's answer. Or you can join by text. It may be easier, text my name, Timothy Shirk 857 to 22333. Text Timothy Shirk 857 to 22333. And then whenever there's a question up, you can then text in your answer and it will be included. So let's give this a try. When you think of financial wellness, what comes to mind? And you can see the instructions up at the top there, pollev.com, and then type in Timothy Shirk 857, or text Timothy Shirk 857 to 22333. Retirement accounts, that's one that springs to mind. That's probably one of your larger assets. Help. I like that. It's good to be looking for assistance. Retire sooner rather than later. Security, balanced budget. Starting to see some pretty wide issues here, right? You've got budget, you've got debt, you've got security, retirement, and just the cry for help, right? I mean, how am I'm pretty smart when it comes to teaching folks in the medical profession, but when it comes to finances, that's not my forte. So you can see a lot of things that we could potentially cover today, and it looks like we're going to be able to cover most of them. But if anything that I do cover today, if you have a question about something I cover today, please feel free to shoot me an email. Well, you're going to touch on the FICO score in a moment too, and I'll be happy to try to answer that. So it looks like you're all getting it. Looks like you're all figuring out how to use this tool. We'll try to keep you engaged for the rest of the meeting. All right. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover what is a wellness score. How can you find your wellness score? That's the process of actually calculating it. And then the last two are going to be where the bulk of the meeting is. How is it calculated and how do you improve it? We're going to do those at the same time. Let's dive right into what a wellness score is. All right. Now, a wellness score, this particular wellness score is a proprietary metric, meaning Francis Investment Council advisors came up with it. And essentially what we did is we huddled together and we said, what is it that we want to know about an individual in order to help them to evaluate how financially well they are, how they're doing financially? And so we gathered a whole bunch of things that we want to know, including budgeting practices, including debt, including the assets that you own, including your estate plan, insurance. And we put them all together into a questionnaire that some of you have completed, some of you haven't yet, but it's not too late, you still can. And then we weighted the answer to these questions in such a way that your answers could be turned into a numeric score. So it's a numeric representation of your overall financial wellness. If you're familiar with a credit score, it's very similar to how a credit score is done. If you look at your credit report, the Fair Isaac Corporation will take that credit report and it point weights, evaluates each of the different issues in there, and it combines them in a formula that spit out a number to illustrate your experience with credit. All right, we want to do the same thing with finances. However, this is not related to credit, so it's similar but unrelated. So, you know, if you got a score of 488, you say, wow, you know, I know that's a low credit score. Well, it's not related to credit score. So we intentionally tried not to make this a grading scale. We tried to intentionally make it a trajectory scale. So ideally, what you'll do is you'll take this score. Hopefully, you've done it before the meeting. We'll have this conversation today about what you can do to improve it, and then take it again and see what kind of movement you may have been able to achieve in terms of your score. That's the goal. And we will have this app available to you after this meeting for some time so that you can take it again and see if you can see that improvement. So that is what the wellness score, I'm going to call it, from now on, I'm going to call it the MAP score, the Money Advice Planner, because that's the tool we're using. How do you find it? Well, search the Apple or Google store, whichever is appropriate for your phone, for Money Advice @work. And @ is the key there. Okay, if you have Money Advice @work, you're going to see our app pop up, and it has the blue logo, blue round logo, likes over my shoulder. Click on that, download it. When you open it, provide your company name, in this case, Medical College of Wisconsin. They're going to ask you for an advisor, select me. If you don't select me, you will automatically be put in my name. That's just because we're working with this app with Medical College of Wisconsin for this meeting primarily, and as a result, because I am doing this meeting, we wanted all of the Medical College folks to come to me as advisor. All right, once you do that, then you're going to land on the home page and you're going to see a Begin Here button. All right, if you don't see a Begin Here button, send me an email. We'll see if we can figure out why it's not working for you. Click Begin Here. You're going to have a place where you can put in some of your personal information. Some will be pre-filled. This is just more about you, things like your age and your birthday, so we can kind of plug that into the math. There'll be some numbers, some quantitative kind of things like how much you have in accounts and how much you're saving. And then there'll be some questions related to the more qualitative, your financial perceptions and your financial activities as opposed to numbers, but what your actually your practices are. And when we condense all these down together, it's going to spit out a number. In this case, my example spits out 488. That is not going to give you an A, B, C, D, E, F kind of score. All right, and there's no E's in there. It's been a while since I've been in school. A, B, C, D, F. But it is going to give you a starting point. And then notice down at the bottom, there's 5 things that they're going to suggest you talk to Tim about. Now, usually we use this tool to direct people to talk to their advisor. So as their advisor, I can help walk them through this. In this case, I'm going to encourage you to just consider these 5 things to be the 5 things that you can address to make the most improvement of your financial wellness. Those are the things that will impact your score the most. So, for example, saving more for retirement, increasing your emergency fund, schedule a meeting. We'll talk about your Transamerica options, for example, when it comes to retirement. So direct you to some of the resources that Medical College is already providing for you as an employee. So that is the how do you get it? That is the downloading the app and running through the Money Advice Planner. Let's get into the meat of the meeting, which is how is it calculated and how do you improve it? Basically, if you look at the design around your score there, you're going to see that there's six or 7 different segments represented by different colors. And the point here is your financial life is made up of various different components. A very small but important component is the perceptions you have about money and how it relates to your family and members of your team. There's a portion related to taking charge. How in charge are you of your finances? There's building wealth. This is the savings account and the retirement account. There's debt. How are you managing debt? There's protection and there's estate planning. So we're going to walk through each of these. We're going to show you how we, as money advisors, think each of these impact your financial wellness, and then what you can do to then improve your position in any one of those categories. Notice how for each of these sections, there's a different level of completion. This one is 100% complete. This one is about half complete. So it gives you a visual representation of where you're at with each of these categories. Any questions so far, Terry?
So far, Tim, we don't have any questions.
All right.
Let's go.
I'll try to stop every once in a while.
Sounds good.
So the first place I wanted to start is perceptions. And we think that perceptions make up about 6% of your overall wellness picture. And perception is the type of questions that we ask related to this is related to how often money is a stressor for you or for your team. And how often do you disagree about money? How often do you meet with your teammates related to money? And we're going to talk, I wanted to lead with this one because a lot of the other items, as you start to get a handle on the other items like defeating debt and building wealth and protecting, as you start getting a handle on those, that will naturally start to improve your perceptions. So I'm going to start with perceptions, but then I'm also going to end with perceptions. And the first question I want to ask everybody to give feedback on is, who said this? If you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. Who said that? Was it Thomas Jefferson A, Benjamin Franklin B, Mark Twain C, JFK D, or none of the above? And the reality is this is one of those statements that you could imagine any one of those folks saying, right? But in this case, most of you are correct. It is Benjamin Franklin. I've actually heard some commercial for some financial organization use this recently in the Milwaukee area. I believe it's also something that Dave Ramsey has said. So if you said none of the above because you thought it was some local advisor here, Dave Ramsey, you get credit as well. Yeah, so if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. And that's the whole point of taking charge. Taking charge has to do with, have you met with an advisor so you can get that help that you need? Do you use a family budget? Do you track your spending? These are questions that get to the heart of how in control am I of my money. All right. We consider this to be about 13% of the score that we give you. This is the biggest of the qualitative questions. Remember, the quantitative questions are the numbers and the dollar signs and the years and the rates of return, those kind of things. Qualitative is how you think about money, and this really is where it begins, because taking charge is where you start to manage the numbers, and so that's why I'm addressing that first, right after perceptions. The first thing I would say is, especially if you're looking for help, and get help from a fiduciary. Okay, a fiduciary is a person who's legally obligated to act in your best interest, to put your interest ahead of their own. And the way that works itself out is they have to remain conflict-free. They can't be making advice that would benefit them, but that would maybe not benefit you as a result. So they've got this conflict. Should I give this advice or shouldn't I? Because of how it would impact them. The way that we do that is we do that without having any sales and without getting any hidden fees from any other organization. And the key to this, if you're looking for an advisor, is just ask them, are you going to be a fiduciary, and how often will you be a fiduciary, and when will I know when you're not going to be a fiduciary? And the ones who are a fiduciary are going to leap to it and say, I'm going to be a fiduciary, and then they're going to explain all about what a fiduciary means, because that's how they differentiate themselves. They're fiduciaries, and they're proud of it. And that's why I talk about fiduciary a lot, because frankly, that's what differentiates us. And there are lots of them out there. So, and I'm going to show you some sites where you can go and look and find some. The key word you want to hear there is you want to hear fee only. Fee only person is the person who's paid for advice. They don't have any sales. They don't have any other revenue crediting. They don't have any other fees or relationships with any other providers. Fee only. Fee-based is not the same thing as fee only. You want to hear fee only. Fee-based means, yeah, I'll charge you a fee for advice, but I'll also collect some fees elsewhere. A lot more I can say on that, but I just simply don't have time. I do encourage you to look for a CFP. Being a CFP, a Certified Financial Planner, does not mean that you're going to be a great advisor any more than, you know, being a doctor means you're going to be a great doctor, right? They're not entirely parallel, because a doctor is required in order to exercise certain privileges. But, you know, the point is you've got good CFPs and bad CFPs. So just finding a CFP doesn't relieve you from the burden of doing some due diligence, but I would start there, okay? It is an industry standard that we do recommend you look for. If you want to find an advisor, you want to see their experience, you want to see if they have any disciplinary history, you want to see if they have any customer complaints, got 3 websites. FINRA.org, that's your person will be there if they're registered as a broker. SEC.gov, your provider will be there if they're registered as an advisor, and Let'sMakeAPlan.org is if they're a CFP. And some people will be on all 3 of those. And then again, you can look in there and you can see how long they've been in the industry. Experience is everything. The longer the better. Any disciplinary history, any customer complaints, and the like. And again, this will be recorded. It'll be made available again. So if you miss those, Terry will be able to point you to where you can go back and review the recording and pause it. Part of taking charge is getting help if you need it. Part of taking charge is doing a budget. And I know immediately when I say do a budget, a lot of folks say I'm not going to. And number one objection is I won't be able to buy what I want, right? We have visions of, you know, bread and water and ramen noodles, all right? And I'm here to tell you that the exact opposite is true, all right? The budget will help you buy exactly what you want to buy, and I'll illustrate that. And you'll see that you'll remember situations where you had this experience. Let's imagine for a moment the Packers are going to go to the Super Bowl this year, and you want to have a party, so you want to go buy a brand new TV, and it just so happens that Best Buy has a doorbuster, a 36-inch high-definition TV with great sound, stereo surround sound for $150. Well, that's phenomenal. That's in my budget. I can go and I can buy that. You get there, and you find that they've positioned that TV right next to a 96-incher, right? And they're playing black and white reruns of the Andy Griffith Show on a dim setting with mono audio. And the Packers-Bear games is high definition, and it's stereo surround sound. And while your TV you went in for is $150, this big TV is priced at $50 per month. You say, well, I can afford $50 a month, and boy, look at how cool that. I mean, you feel the hits with that TV. All of a sudden, you're falling prey to the marketing department, which is coming up with ways by way of positioning and placement to convince you to buy something that you didn't want to buy. But if you have the budget says, no, this is what I came in for. This is what I can afford. If I want to buy the other TV, I have to go back to the budget and say, well, do I have room in my budget for it? What else do I prioritize lower than a TV? And then that actually gives me a way to make that decision. So it'll actually help you buy what you want to buy. Second reason people don't do it, they just don't know where to start. The budget's just really a big deal, spreadsheet this or app that, or, how can I do this? Starting is simple. Just take a small notepad around with you. Keep it in your purse, ladies. Guys, put it in your front pocket or your back pocket. Keep a pen, and just whenever you spend money, just write down where you spent it and what you bought. I went to the gas station and I bought $30 of gas and $20 or $2 of soda. Okay, and just keep track. And what that'll do is after 3, 5, 6 months, you'll start to have a pattern to two very valuable things. Number one, you'll see some low-hanging fruit. Wow, I had no idea I spent that much money on soda when I go get gas. All right. Boy, if I bought a 2-liter, I could save a whole lot of money in the month. And so take the low-hanging fruit that you can grab savings from. Second, now you can start building a budget because I know this is how much I spend eating out each month. This is how much I spend on my groceries each month. It gives you a place to start. So just start by keeping track. So how to improve your score for taking charge? Number one, meet with an advisor. I would say Michael, I can't say his last name, Olszewski. He is the Transamerica rep that you have through work. Great place to start. I know he comes on sites. He also meets by phone and email. So that'd be a great place to start since it's available to you already. Start tracking your spending. Just get a notepad, take it with you, and then create a budget and start to use it. Terry, any pressing questions that I should address at this point?
So far, I don't have any questions, and you did great on Michael's name. It's Michael Olszewski, so you were really close.
All right. All right. I made that error in absolute good faith. All right. So next engagement question, how do you measure wealth? Say, Tim, how wealthy am I? Do you look at how much you own, A, your income, B, the dollar value of your accounts, C, your net worth, D, or something else, E? All right. And I'm so excited that very few, actually none of you have answered how much you own, because what you own is not a good measure of what your wealth is. You can't tell how wealthy a person by the car they drive to work in or by the boat that they're trailing behind them. You also can't tell by the income they have. The answer that I'm looking for is actually net worth. Dollar value is included in net worth, and some of you may be thinking of another way that I'm not as familiar with, and that's okay. And some of you just like having the sunshine and warmth in your heart, and you're wealthy, and I certainly wouldn't disagree with you on that. So let's talk about building wealth. Building wealth, we consider this to be about 27% of your overall financial wellness, and that makes up 27% of your score. The questions are related to what's the value of your accounts, how much do you owe in debts. We also include a little bit here related to credit score and your process of checking that credit score. And let's just address this. How do we measure wealth? It's not determined by income. There are a lot of rich people that are flat broke because they don't retain that high income. All right? It's not determined by toys. You can own a lot of toys, but if you have enough debt, those toys actually don't belong to you. You don't actually have wealth. So that's why we use what we call net worth. What is net worth? Net worth is the fair market value of the things that you own. That's your assets. Fair market value. That means what a willing buyer will pay to a willing seller with no outside coercion or force. So that pickup truck that you bought, 30 years ago for, or 20 years ago for $30,000 is not worth $30,000 anymore, right? It's got 300,000 and you love it, 300,000 miles and you love it, but you could probably sell it for $1,500. Well, the fair market value is $1,500. You subtract from that the liabilities, anything that you owe, school loan, mortgage, credit card debts, personal loans, car loans, anything that you owe money on. So the fair market value minus what you owe, that is your net worth. Now, there's a great calculator, moneyadviceatwork.com/learn more. One of the attachments that Terry sent yesterday or this morning, one of the attachments will have a paper form of this calculator. So you can, if you want to go through and kind of write in some of the things there, then go to moneyadviceatwork.com/learn more, click on calculators, click on net worth calculator. It'll help you do that math. All right. Now, caution, you're just getting out of school, you've got some student debt, this may be negative. Technically, that means you're broke, that means you're insolvent. Don't panic, but what we want to see, again, we don't want to see this be an A, B, C, D, F letter grade. We want to see this as a trajectory. So we want to see you going in the right way. So there's also the rules of thumb about how much net worth should I have. My rule of thumb is a higher net worth this year than you had last year. Will I be prepared for retirement? A lot of people ask that. Assuming no pension benefit, we generally say that by 40 years old, you want to have 3 times your income saved up as a dollar amount. So you've got $100,000 of income. By 40, you should have $300,000 in retirement accounts. By 50, it's 5 times. By retirement, it's 10 to 12. Now, if you took my course on rules of thumb last year, and it may still be available online, you'll know I'm not a really big fan of this because it's based on your current income, not based on the income you need in retirement. And you might have a high income and you might be doing a lot of saving. You might be paying for 5 kids and you might be giving half of it away and need much less in retirement. So this is a really rough, dirty rule of thumb. I'd say calculate it. I'm going to show you a calculator in just a moment. Be a little bit better approach. If you're under 50, I just have to throw this out. Consider doing Roth savings. The younger you are, the better the Roth is for you. Gives you opportunity for tax-free growth and gives you some tax-free savings in retirement that you can draw from. Rule of thumb, generally you say plan to replace 70-80% of your working income in retirement. So again, if you have $100,000 of combined income in your home, expect 70 to 80,000 of need. Again, rough and dirty rule of thumb, better to build a budget for retirement and actually calculate it. Again, Social Security, probably 30 to 45 or 50% of that. So your retirement plan, you're probably looking at 30, 35% of your working income that you need to replace. Really quick and really dirty. Do the math at moneyadviceatwork.com/learn more. Click on Crunch the Numbers, and then click on Retirement Strategy. There's a great calculator in there. You can put in not only your accounts at Medical College of Wisconsin, but also outside accounts, and I'm sure that your Transamerica advisor will be happy to help you do this projection as well. So in terms of building wealth, how to improve your score, you didn't get a chance to talk about it, but create an emergency fund. Emergency fund is money that you get at quickly without market risk and without penalty. I love the money market at a bank for this. I like a Roth IRA as a backup kind of emergency fund. You can also do just cash if you want to just do cash. Not going to get a lot of growth out of it, but that's not the purpose of an emergency fund. The purpose of the emergency fund is to replace income if you lose it, or to pay for an unexpected expense that pops up. Set automatic contributions to both your emergency fund and retirement account. That'll get the cash flowing into those savings account automatically without you having to remember to make those contributions. That's one of the reasons why the 401k is so valuable. It allows you to set up that automatic contribution and set up that auto increase for your retirement account. Maybe you can't save as much as you need to. in order to be ready for retirement. But maybe if you increase 1% each year, gradually over time, you can get there. So building wealth is important. It's 27% of the overall score. A small piece of that is going to be find a regular source for your credit score. We do want you to check that. I use my Discover card, credit card, will give me my credit score. You can use your bank, or sometimes U.S. Bank will do it. I know there's a Credit Karma out there that will do it as well. You want to use the same source though, because every credit source is going to have a little bit different take on the credit score, a little bit different reason. So find a source for checking that, and then check your credit report annually. More on that in a moment. All right. Questions on building wealth, Terry?
So far, we don't have any questions. People are listening intently and you're flying along. So I think they're keeping up with you. And just a reminder to everyone, we have a 403B. Tim is familiar with that. He's referring you to Michael Olszewski through Transamerica, and we can help with those types of questions as well.
Okay, great. Yeah. Part of the reason I'm not getting any questions right now is I'm giving them a sip of water through a fire hydrant. So there's a lot of information coming.
Hey, Tim, there actually is a question on here.
Yeah.
They want to know if there's a guideline for the amount to have in an emergency fund, like 6 months worth or some other amount of your income.
Yeah, so like 6 months for most folks. If you are a employee, 2-earner family, and you've got really solid work, I'm happy with 3, but then 3 months more in a Roth IRA. If you're a single earner family and your work isn't as steady, then maybe look at 9 months. So it does vary a little bit. 6 is the standard, but it does depend on, if you're in construction and as a result it's seasonal, you need to have a little bit more. Great question.
All right, and then can you tell us what the breakdown is of the purple section? What is all included in that?
I could if I knew what the purple section was, but I don't see colors. So is it the small one? Is it? Oops.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a pinkish purple. I don't know.
Is it that one?
That's a dark blue.
Okay,
it's the one just below that.
Okay, we will come to that. Let's see. I don't think we've done that one yet, right? Yeah.
Okay. So that'll be up to follow.
Yep. So someone's got a question about that one specifically. If I don't cover it, I'm going to cover it. So if I don't cover it, email me and give me a tongue lashing. Let me get back up to speed here. Okay. What is the average credit card debt carried month to month? I'm surprised you got this. 60% said 5,315, and that is in fact the case. It's actually down from where it was, where it's been historically. It's been up as high as 14. These other numbers, however, are kind of important. There are other types of debts. Average personal loan debt is $16,500. Average automobile is almost $20,000. Average student loan debt is $39,000. So while credit card debt is damaging, it's not the only potential debt that we have out there. We do want to try to defeat debt. We think defeating debt is about a quarter of the score. The question here is, do you have a healthy relationship with debt? Debt can be used to do some great things like purchase a home or maybe purchase a car. But you need to make sure you're not using too much, you're using the right type. The questions included in this are, what's the fair market value of your assets? What's the outstanding balance of your debts? The minimum payments? What's your credit score, and do you check it annually? So how much is too much? We measure that with what we call debt ratios. I'm going to give you 3 of them. Okay, and I believe I gave these to you in a handout as well. These are really good if you're thinking about buying a home or a car and you want to know how much can I buy and still be healthy. Run these debt ratios and see if you'll be able to stay inside of the limits. The first one is the total debt ratio. Okay, the total debt ratio is total liability, so that's what you owe, all your debts, divided by your total assets, and we want that to be less than 50%. Now again, young person, it might not happen, especially if you're just coming out of school, you've not purchased a home. The ideal is 50%. The goal here is to help you know how far away from insolvency you are. Don't panic on this one. This one definitely want to look at as trajectory. It measures how close you are to insolvency. 50% or less is kind of what we target. And, you know, again, consider the direction you're headed. These are very valuable when you think about what I can afford for a home. Total debt service is the total service divided by your gross income. So your debt service is how much of your money goes to pay off that debt each month. So it's your minimum payment, including principal and interest and any fees the debts might have. Divide that by your gross income for the month. We would like that to be less than 36%. And what that measures, it measures the ability of your cash flow to manage the outstanding debt. So can I afford this debt? Well, if I'm stuck paying this monthly bill each month, do I still have enough cash flow elsewhere to accomplish what I need to accomplish? And generally, for your total debt, you want less than 36%. Home service debt, just for the home, and this is really valuable when you're looking at buying a home. That is home service, which will include mortgage payment, taxes, private mortgage insurance, if you need to have it. All of that monthly amount divided by your gross income, that you want to have less than 28%. Now, some folks ask me on this slide, why gross income, why not net? And, you know, the answer is gross income is what they taught me. Some folks prefer net, and if you want to do that, that's good. What that does, that locks in a little bit tighter restriction on you, keeps you a little bit lower in terms of how much debt you can take on, and I'm absolutely fine with that. Another rule of thumb, if you're looking for buying a home, if you get paid monthly, you know, you want 1 week, essentially 1 week of your income to go to pay for the home. So you got one of the pieces is also related to debt is credit score. And so I wanted to look at how is that credit score built? And then by knowing how it's built, you can kind of see how to correct it. 35% of that is just your payment history. So if you pay your bills on time, minimum payments every month, that's 35% of your score. The 30% is based on your utilization. Utilization is the ratio, so it's how much debt you're using compared to how much credit is extended to you. So in a weird sort of way, it's better to have $2,000 of debt against $10,000 of credit extended to you than it is to have $500 of debt with just $1,000 of credit extended to you, because it's a lower ratio. So that, be thinking in terms of ratio, that's going to impact what you do with accounts, for example, when you pay them off. Don't close old empty accounts. 15% of that is going to be due to the length of the credit. Additionally, if you've paid down an account, that's credit that's extended to you. So that helps the denominator of the utilization. So how much you have compared to how much is extended to you, keep those accounts open. And then frequency of credit inquiries. If you get a lot of credit inquiries, that's going to hurt your score as well. But again, pay your bills on time, keep the utilization down. That's going to be 65–70% of your report or of your score. Check your credit report and dispute if needed. Terry, is there a question coming? Is that why I see you?
Yes, you see me for that. The question is, why does your credit score go down when you check your credit score too often?
Yeah, so there's such a thing as a hard check and a soft check. A hard check is when you want to buy something, and so you want to take a loan, and that loan organization goes and checks your credit score. A soft check is when some company wants to try to sell you a credit card, and so they check your score to see if they can sell it to you. All right. So it's the hard checks that hurt you, and it does because they assume if you're looking for credit, you might be in trouble. So if you do it, you know, and there'll be a space of a week or two that you can check a whole bunch of times without hurting you. But if you check it now and then 2 months later and then 2 months later and 2 months later, it's a pattern of checking. It gives them the indication that maybe you're not able to pay your obligations. So that would be why. And again, it's 10%. So if everything else is good in terms of utilization, you'll be okay. Okay.
And then another question we had is home equity considered an asset?
Yeah, so that would be the fair market value of your home. So my home is worth $200,000 and I owe $100,000 on it. So the $200,000 would go in the asset, fair market value of the asset, and the $100,000 would go into the debt, whether it's for net worth or whether it's for the debt ratio.
One other question, does paying your credit card payment a few days before or on the due date lower your score versus paying it a week ahead? So days versus week.
It does depend, and it just depends on when they check your score. If I put $5,000 of, if I pay with one credit card each month and my expenses are $5,000 each month, but I pay it off down to zero each month, if they check right after I've paid it off, I've got zero debt. If they check just before I pay it off, I've got $5,000. So as a result, your credit score can vary, can fluctuate pretty dramatically day to day. Now, dramatically, we're talking it might be 790 and then it might be 785. So it does depend on when they check, and it all has to do with when they check. So I would pay it on the same time and check your credit score on the same time.
And why shouldn't you close empty accounts?
It's all about the ratio and the length of time. So you get credit for having longer credit accounts. So if you get, that's a 10-year-old credit account and you close it, well, you just got rid of a long-standing account. But remember, having $500 of debt against $1,000 of credit extended to you, that you're using half of the credit extended to you, right? If you're using $2,000 of $10,000 of credit extended to you, you're only using 20%. So for your credit score, they'd rather see you use 20%, even if it's a larger dollar value, than half, even if it's a smaller dollar value. So if you've got $5,000 of credit extended to you in that other account, and you leave it open, it keeps that denominator real big, keeps that ratio real small. Okay?
Great, that's very helpful. Is it necessary to freeze credit inquiries?
I would say slam dunk freeze it. I sent one of the attachments was a letter, and that letter says how to freeze your accounts. It's easy to do. I've done it for myself and I've done it for my wife. And what that will do is it will protect you against future people trying to open a credit account in your name. So it's not necessary, but it's an easy way to not be the lowest hanging fruit. And I've refinanced my house since I've done it, and I forgot to unfreeze it, and the bank just emailed me or called me and said, hey, Tim, your account's frozen. Oops, went back online. 15 minutes later, it was unfrozen. So it's worth the hassle to do the protection.
Okay, and we'll do one more and then we'll continue on and try and come back to some of these that we may have missed. Do credit score bots impact your credit score? I have one attached to a credit card. So it's a bot that must regularly check it behind the scenes.
Okay, I would assume that, so like if you're talking about like a Credit Karma or something like that where they check you every so often, that would be considered a soft check. If you're checking for the purpose of obtaining a Best Buy card or buying a house or a automobile, that would be a hard check. So my guess is it would be a soft check, but you'd have to ask the provider of that bot, is it a hard check or a soft check? Soft check won't, hard check will. All right, to improve your score, calculate your debt ratios and then prioritize your debts. We weren't able to go through the debt snowball, but essentially you want to, if you've got 5 debts, don't spread overpayment across all the debts. You've done your budgeting and you find out you've got $200 available each month for paying down debt. Well, don't spread that $20 across each of 10 debts. Instead, pick the debt that you want to terminate first. Typically, it's the most expensive, or if you've got a real small one. I've still got $500 on Best Buy because of that television I purchased, all right? If I can terminate it quickly, the goal is to try to focus on one, because if you can terminate one, you now have all that overpayment plus the minimum payment on that one to direct on the next one. It's called the debt snowball, and by prioritizing one debt at a time, you can actually get out of debt faster. Make all your payments on time. That'll keep your credit score up. Overpay on the highest priority debt, and then find a good source for your credit score so you can check it on a regular basis, and schedule 3 credit report checks each year. The place you go there is annualcreditreport.com. There's no jingle, all right? Annualcreditreport.com. They have to give you a free report once a year. You can look at that report, read through it, and dispute any mistakes on it. All right, for protecting, a 30-year-old is more likely to experience what prior to 65? Death or disability? Is it disability by the likelihood of 4 to 1? Disability by the likelihood of 27 to 1? Even chances? Death by the likelihood of 27 to 1? Or death by the likelihood of 4 to 1? So what's more likely for a 30-year-old, that they die before 65 or that they're disabled before 65? All right, and the answer actually is A. At 30 years old, looking forward, you're 4 times more likely to be disabled than to die before 65. Now, as you get older, those chances go down, so that when you get closer to 65, you're getting closer and closer to even chances. I highlight that because a lot of folks that I talk to don't even have any idea what their long-term or short-term disability is at work, what they might have. And will that cover if they have a disability? So the questions, we think protection insurance is 19% of the score. And the questions we ask is, what's the value of your cash accounts? That's your emergency fund. There's a piece of self-insurance there. There's also the ability to cover in the case you have a short-term disability that's not covered. Your income's not as covered as much. Do you have short-term disability? Do you have long-term disability? Do you have sufficient life insurance? Do you have homeowners, renters, autos? And do you have health insurance? Those are the things that we're asking to come up with this question. We think it's about 1/5 of your overall wellness. Why do we buy insurance? Your family has goals. You have a lifestyle. You have plans for retirement. In order to achieve these goals, you need assets, investments, homes, automobiles, and the like. In order to get those assets, you need to have money, right? And that's why you're working. You have income to buy the assets, to support the lifestyle, the goals, etc. There are all sorts of potential attacks that can happen to that money, maladies, calamities, illness, disaster, death, disability, that will cut into that money, as a result, cut into the assets, as a result, torpedo your goals. The purpose of life insurance is to shield your finances from those individual calamities, all right? So if somebody gets some kind of an illness and it's going to be really expensive to treat, we have health insurance to cover that. If somebody gets in an accident, we've got automobile insurance to cover that. So that's the purpose of insurance. A couple types of insurance. One insures the assets or the things, homeowners, condo, renters insurance, and auto insurance, and then miscellaneous. You've got your RV and your ATV and your boat and your jewelry. This protects your things and will essentially allow you to replace those things in the event you have a loss due to theft or accident or the like. The one I want to point out is umbrella. Umbrella is a policy that extends your liability. So you've got liability insurance through your automobile and through your home, but they have limits. The umbrella policy generally very inexpensive, and it provides additional liability on top of your car or your automobile or your RV or your boat. So if you have an accident and your liability is exceeded in your car, the umbrella comes over on the top and can do $1 million or $2 million pretty inexpensively. Great way to get some liability protection. I would encourage you to talk to your insurance person about that. Second type of insurance insures us, protects us. Things like disability, health care, life, long-term care, identity theft. Now, the couple things to think about when I'm thinking about life insurance. I like people to use insurance for insuring and investments for investing. Insurance makes bad investments, and investments make bad insurance. So often you'll go to your insurance person and they'll say, well, this is a great whole universal policy and it can build value and save for retirement while you're protecting yourself. And it's probably good insurance, but it's a lousy investment. It's expensive and it's not going to grow well. All right. And conversely, you can have this big pile of assets in these retail investment accounts and you think, oh, I can just self-insure. But if the market goes down in value dramatically, all of a sudden your ability to insure has gone down dramatically. So use insurance for insuring, use investments for investing. I like the 2 Fridays game. The 2 Fridays game is where you and your team go out for a date. Maybe it's you and a spouse, you and your partner. Friday 1, one of you's passed away, build a plan for the survivor. Okay, we're going to pay off the house with the insurance after work, and we're going to pay down the student bills, student debt, and that leaves us with this amount of expense each month. Can what your surviving spouse partner can earn, can that cover that expense? If not, purchase term insurance to replace the difference, to cover the lost income. I like term. Term is just pure insurance set for a certain period of time. I'm going to have the kids for 20 years. I want a 20-year term insurance to replace my income if I die. If I no longer have the kids, I no longer need to replace that part of insurance, so I can let it lapse. Boy, I could do a lot more on that. Make sure it's a 2 Friday game, though. Make sure that you go again and assume the other one's passed away and put together a plan for the opposite survivor. If you have unneeded insurance, consider eliminating it and not paying for it. So in terms of insurance, to improve your score, build your emergency fund. That's kind of your first line of defense. Find out from HR, what's my short-term disability? What's my long-term disability? And go through the math. Could I live on this how would my family do on 60% of my income? And if that's not enough, then we need to go and get some retail disability. Play the 2 Fridays game where you determine what your actual needs are and then replace any of that with term insurance. And then just verify your homeowner's renter's insurance are sufficient and that you've got sufficient health care. All right, I'm going to skip over the question for estate plan. Here is the purple piece that is planning it forward. This has to do with your estate plan, your wills. Is your retirement beneficiaries up to date? Other account beneficiaries? Do you have a will? Do you have your accounts labeled as transfer on death and pay on death? This is how are my assets going to pass to my loved ones, all right? Now, there are 3 ways that this happens. One is with direct accounts, and this is the most efficient. If you and your spouse or your partner have a bank account and you're joint owners and one of you passes away, bam, the other one is still an owner, so the transfer is seamless. Beneficiary elections will be your 403B, your IRAs. You tell the provider, Transamerica, for example, who receives my money in the event I pass away. Again, seamless, bam, outside of probate, easy to do. Pay on death, transfer on death, these are for assets that don't have beneficiaries and aren't joint labeled. But if you were to pass away, your executor can bring a death certificate. Automatically, that account, that asset will transfer or be paid to someone else. So those are direct transfers, very efficient. A trust, trusts are kind of scary and nebulous, but really all a trust is, it's an entity that's created to own assets. Assets, by definition, need to be owned by someone, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense for that to be owned by a person. And when that's the case, a great example would be if you have a mixed marriage where you've got some kids that were yours from a previous marriage, some kids that were hers from a previous marriage, and then some kids that are both of yours. And maybe hers aren't living with you and yours aren't living with you, you're just living with the ones that are common. Well, if you pass away and your wife receives your assets and then she passes away, your assets could transfer to your kids if your kids from a previous marriage are her beneficiaries. But if they aren't, your kids from a previous marriage might not receive anything. So you can create a trust that can own the assets, provide for your spouse, but then have the remainder benefit go to the kids. So if you need to do something unique like that, that's where you need to have a trust in place. And then finally, everything else is probate. Verify your will is up to date. Select an executor. They're going to do the work of your will. Make sure you name a custodian for the kids. And then you set in place in advance what you want to have happen to you in the event that you pass away. All of this can be done. Your EAP program, Employee Assistance Program, has some assistance for putting these together. So I would check with your benefits group to see about getting some legal assistance there. They've got some templates and stuff that you can do pretty easy. Otherwise, certainly talk to the lawyer. To improve your score there, update your account beneficiaries. Talk to Michael of Transamerica to make sure those are set correctly. IRAs, et cetera. Set, transfer, or pay on death on accounts. Update your last will and testament, and make sure you tell your team about it. Okay, I'm going to stop here for a question in case we have them, because I'm running out of time here, Terry. Got any questions?
Yes, I do. Got a couple. First one is, as a single person with no dependents, why would I need life insurance?
The answer is you might not. Okay, and so the way we phrase that question in the, it's going to go to the back screen. The way we phrase that question in the questionnaire is, do you have sufficient life insurance? And if you're single, no kids, you probably want to have enough to, to take the end of life, bury yourself so you're not a burden on your family. But the answer is 0 might be sufficient for you. That's a great question.
Okay, and the next one is, how about home title lock insurance, which is getting a lot of publicity right now?
Yeah, that's one that I need to do some research on because it's brand new. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Now, if the person that asked that question wants to email that question to me, I'll be happy to look into it and see about it. It sounds an awful lot like a way someone came up with to generate some revenue, but I can't address that professionally. I apologize for that.
Well, we can definitely help people if they want to email me, email you. We'll get it to you, and you can do some research for us. That would be wonderful. With the inherited IRA rule changes that eliminated stretch, what is a good option if life insurance is not good for investment?
So, while the stretch has been eliminated, I've talked with folks in the industry. While the stretch has been eliminated, in practice, the stretch is rarely treated the way that we want it treated when we put the stretch together. So typically what happens with your heirs get it, and they typically spend it within 10 years anyway. So you want to stretch it for 30 years for them. They typically do inside of 10. Now, the neat thing about the stretch change is, I believe it's 10 years now that they have, and they don't have to take any of it for 10 years. Okay, now I'm scratching my memory back about a year ago. So what that means is actually a better thing now, in a sense, because that beneficiary doesn't have to take anything, where the stretch originally they had to take it either all in 5 years or they had to take it based on your life expectancy. Now they don't have to do anything with it for 10 years, and typically that's longer than most people kept it in the stretch anyway. So I would say that the elimination of the stretch rule actually is a good thing for most, not a bad thing. Now, if your beneficiaries are better at being good at that, I'm sorry that they got rid of the stretch rule. I still like the Roth IRA for that, because then when they do receive it, income tax free. So they've got a lot more flexibility with what they can do with it. They don't have to pay a third of it when they receive it, ultimately 10 years down the road. I hope that helps. If that didn't answer your question, send an email to me or to Terry to forward to me, and then I'll try to address it better than that. But I still like the stretch rules.
And I know we're closing out. People are still on. I just want to remind everyone, at the end of February, you would have received an email that indicated you had received a link within that email to access your total reward statement. And in that total reward statement, it would give you a brief picture of your short-term disability, long-term disability, life insurance, et cetera, of what your values are. And if you have further questions, Human Resources happy to help you with those, but just a friendly reminder on that. Also, another question, I currently have both term and whole life insurance. Do I need both?
Okay, I don't think you need both, but I want you to carefully look at your situation before you get rid of either of them, all right? I generally am a big fan of term, because term insurance covers a specific period of time, and all of your insurance needs are for a specific period of time. When you're 65 years old and you and your spouse are both retired and you're drawing your pension and your 403B and your Social Security, you don't need life insurance anymore, right? So I really don't like whole universal life, because the promise is it never goes away, but frankly, you don't need it anymore. With that said, whole and universal does have the advantage of not requiring the underwriting if you need to pick up again. So if you had some kind of a health issue or something like that, or if you later in life you had a dependent, you still might need it. So generally speaking, I would say figure out how much money you need to, how much income you need to replace if you passed away. Use term to fill that. And you probably don't need the whole universal. If you still have the whole universal and you can have it pay itself and draw down your cash value that way, I'd go that route. So you retain the insurance if you need it. If you don't need it, then stop contributing to it.
Okay, and another question, if everything is POD, payable on death, do you need a will?
Oh boy. Okay, so let me just start by saying not a lawyer. All right. So the will is so talk to a lawyer. The will is the only way that you get to tell the state of Wisconsin what you want to have happen to your assets. So if you've got kids, the answer is yes. The will is typically where you'll set up those living will and medical power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. So I would say yes, do it. But maybe your situation isn't as complex. If everything's payable on death and beneficiaries, maybe you can do a simple will. All right, and that might argue for minimally, do it yourself. My official advisor hat on, I'd say go to an attorney and tell them exactly what you want and ask them. My default answer is yes, you still need a will.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation on a place, app, website, or other to create a budget?
Yeah, so it depends on your personality. Okay, if you're me, for example, I use Google Sheets because I was able to create a spreadsheet that both I and my wife could access when I'm out of state, when I'm traveling for business. Every Dollar is a really good one. That's Dave Ramsey's. They've got a free version, and you can also pay for it. That's pretty good. But frankly, I've had a lot of good experience with folks who use the envelope method. I've had some folks pay down a lot of debt by simply putting their discretionary expenses like going out to eat and buying toys, going golfing on an envelope and writing it on an envelope with a Sharpie and putting the amount of cash they want to spend each month in that. So the app I would use, I would probably go every day, every dollar if I didn't want to make one myself. Otherwise, I'd do something that's shareable. Go with every dollar. I've seen a lot of people successfully use Mint as well. And Mint also allows you to tie in your asset accounts if you're comfortable doing that. Younger folks typically are.
Okay, and the home service or gross income, is that per month or per year in that section?
Typically, I do that monthly. Just because we think in terms of monthly, we write a monthly check. The math works if it's annually, but it doesn't have as much meaning to you if you're talking about those numbers. So I do it monthly.
And 403B or Roth, which is best? There's a loaded question for you.
Well, that's like asking the question, what's better, the Packers or the Brewers? All right, those are apples and oranges. All right, so 403B versus IRA, that's one question. And generally, your 403B in most situations are less expensive. There are some exceptions, like at a Vanguard. The question I think you're asking is, do I do pre-tax or Roth, right? And you can do pre-tax or Roth in your 403B. You can do pre-tax or Roth in an IRA. Generally speaking, the younger you are, the better the Roth is, because the Roth is a tax break on growth. So that $100 that the 25-year-old saves now might be $1,600 when they retire. No-brainer, tax $100 now. But that $100 that a 64-year-old saves might be $107 at 65. No-brainer, tax in retirement. Break even is usually around 50. That help?
Okay. What is the best thing to do if you're in your 40s, completely debt-free, mortgage, student loan, car loans, all paid off? Fabulous.
Yeah, the best thing for you to do is to become a financial advisor and share your wisdom. So, I would say, depending on your income, if you can save, I like funding Roth IRAs. I like funding the Roth account in your 403B simply because you're putting money away that won't be taxable in retirement. You have a lot more flexibility with it in terms of being able to give it away if you want. You want to give more money away in retirement. That's one thing that's often overlooked. Give it away, save for college for kids or grandkids. Enjoy your money. You saved it. Don't be afraid to, inside of your budget, use it, especially if you can use it in a way that you can satisfying. Maybe you can volunteer for an organization or something like that. So there's nothing wrong with using your money. I like in that environment where everything's up to speed, everything's up to date. I like doing the Roth. I like looking for ways I can meaningfully use it. But yeah, become an advisor and apply at Francis Investment Counsel.
And just a last comment, and then we'll close. I think I've caught all the questions. If I missed your question, my apologies. Someone just put a comment in. There's I believe it's on a phone app. It's called You Need a Budget. They said YNAB, You Need a Budget, is excellent. My husband and I have it on our phones so we can always see what's in the electronic envelope.
Nice. So it's the electronic version of the envelope system.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that feedback. That's very good. YNAB. I'll have to check it out. And again, the key to the budget is this. The key to the budget is you've got to be able to use it, right? So, there's nothing great about a big, fantastic spreadsheet if you can't use it. Find, and if you just keep track of your expenses, for some folks, that's enough to say, okay, I know exactly what I spend too much money on. I'm going to put some envelopes together, or, YNAB, and then I can control my spending that way. Absolutely. Great feedback.
Okay, I think I caught everybody's questions. If there's a question I missed, please don't hesitate to email me, Tim, or Mark, and we will get an answer to you if we can. Thanks for joining us today. Our next session is Clearing Up the Medicare Confusion on May 10th from 5 to 6 p.m. So that's next Monday. So in closing, thanks for your attendance, and thank you, Tim. And we will see you next Monday for our next session. Thanks, everyone.